And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Wednesday morning's flying weather showing some marginal VFR, lower conditions here. Koyukuk Valley westward down into the northern Yukon Delta, northward there to Kotzebue with IFR, Kivalina to Point Hope, through the Bering Strait covering all of the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Marginal VFR for Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula. Kodiak Island seeing some IFR tomorrow morning. That comes up to the extreme southern Kenai Peninsula. Otherwise, Cook Inlet, Copper River Basin, Kuskokwim Valley, VFR, as well as the east side here. Yukon Flats VFR, North Slope Arctic Coast VFR. Some marginal VFR here right along the coast, outer coastline of the Panhandle. Some of that could get in the inside waters, but generally not too bad down that way tomorrow morning. And the afternoon looks like pretty good VFR. All of the Panhandle there with the marginal VFR central and north coast. And along the North Gulf Coast, some IFR slides up into Prince William Sound and marginal VFR coming northward here, as you can see, into Cook Inlet and the southern Kenai Peninsula spreading into Resurrection Bay. And VFR up in the interior. Marginal VFR still holding here from about the Koyukuk Valley westward there along the southern Brooks Range with IFR, western Arctic coast, the system up that way. And a lot of IFR here, St. Lawrence Island, marginal for Nunivak Island, and a big area, or an area of IFR here, spreading over Bristol Bay and into Shelikof Strait there to the southwest side of Kodiak Island. And IFR for the central western Aleutians. Fox Islands here, marginal VFR. And then for tomorrow, that IFR, or for Thursday morning, the IFR spreads toward False Pass there, covering all of the Aleutians now. Just about all of the Bering Sea, pushing into the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. VFR, central eastern interior from Cook Inlet here, Kenai Peninsula, right on up to the North Slope. Marginal VFR for the eastern Arctic coast, central and west side up there, IFR. Southeast coast still pretty good. Marginal VFR for the morning hours. And marginal VFR around Yakutat to maybe Cordova. Not too bad though. And that pretty much dissipates slowly in the afternoon hours. Still some scattered areas of marginal VFR here across southern Alaska, but the interior from the Arctic coast southward there, good VFR, Bristol Bay VFR, most of Kodiak VFR, and IFR holding out over the Bering Sea. And for the passes, for Anatuvik and Adigan, marginal VFR, excuse me, with VFR on the northern entrance of both of those passes. And for Lake Clark and, excuse me again, Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR becoming marginal VFR throughout the day. Same forecast for rainy, look for deteriorating conditions, possibly becoming marginal in the afternoon. Windy though, VFR, holding VFR for Isabel, and Mentasta staying VFR, Tanita VFR, Portage VFR with marginal VFR increasing here, especially on the eastern entrance through the afternoon. And for Chilkoot White, VFR. Freezing levels here, 8,000 feet over the eastern interior down to 10,000, or up to 10,000 feet here, actually from the Gulf of Alaska right on up in toward the Chukchi Sea. And then back down to 8,000 feet right through this area, and then rising back up to 10,000 feet along the Aleutians. And from there, taking a look at the icing forecast for tomorrow. Look for, again, the system coming northward here will spread some enough moisture for considerable moderate rime icing into Bristol Bay and a little bit farther to the north there with just some lighter amounts with the frontal boundary here across southern Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound there in toward Cordova, and a weak system up here bringing a chance of some icing eastern Brooks Range Arctic coast, and a little bit better chance here with another system for the western Arctic coast. Otherwise, kind of an elongated front out here over the Bering Sea, keeping icing threats elevated there for the eastern Aleutians, Adak and Atka, up to the Pribilofs, and then back to the northwest. Jet stream. Low pressure here right into Bristol Bay. Again, this coming from south to north here overnight tonight, and by tomorrow afternoon should be about in this position there over the bay with southeast winds at 75 knots across the southwest interior. Upper high pressure here over the Kobuk Valley and western Brooks Range. We got northerly flow, 75 knots, 65 to 75 knots there across eastern Brooks Range from the Arctic coast. And then sliding down in toward the northern panhandle, we're seeing the stronger wind staying just east of the border there. And out to the west, 80-knot winds here coming across the southern Bering Sea and the Aleutians. 9,000 feet, again low pressure tracking north to about this position tomorrow afternoon. 40-knot winds blowing around that center. This other center here way back to the northwest there with the stronger winds with it. Although south at about 40 here for St. Lawrence Island there in the northern Bering Sea. 35 knots southwesterlies for the eastern Aleutians. And northwest up to 35 knots off the south coast of the Panhandle. 9,000 feet, northwest winds here along the central and south coast up to 35 knots. And for the Kodiak Island area, some westerlies at about 35 knots grazing the southern island there, up to about 40 for Bristol Bay, back down to 35 here for the Alaska Peninsula. Light winds over the interior all the way up to the Arctic coast. Western central Aleutians looking at light wind conditions. Turbulence-wise, occasional moderate turbulence or considerable moderate here for St. Lawrence Island and the western Seward Peninsula, as well as Kodiak Island on up into Kamishak Bay again with that low tracking northward here to the west. Those gusty winds will make for pretty bumpy conditions there for the Kamishak Gap area and Iliamna Lake down to Kodiak Island, as well as the eastern Aleutians.